If you're anything like me, you have more than one set of watercolour paints, and sometimes it's quite nice to do a little comparison, making the same project with the different sets that you have, just to see what the similarities and differences are, and whether one set is better for something than others. So in this short video, we're going to be doing a little galaxy painting, and I'm going to test 4 brands of paint: Kuretake, Winsor Newton Cotman, Schmincke, and my professional Winsor Newton paints. So this wasn't a really scientific experiment, but what I did do was I drew 4 circles with a compass, and I'm using the Canson XL watercolor paper. And first up, I started with my Kuretake paints, which are, I would say, probably the cheapest out of the 4 sets. I decided that I was going to use similar colours in each galaxy, just so that I could see the similarities and differences between them. So I stuck to using crimsons and reds and some blues with a little bit of black to darken it up. I find with galaxies, they look so much better when you do more than one layer. So I decided that I was going to do 1 layer in each brand of paint, and then I was going to wait for those to dry and go back and do a second layer. I did a wet on dry wash. Sometimes it's nice to do a galaxy where you wet the paper first, but they also work equally well when you just have quite a loaded brush full of paint and apply this to dry paper. Let the colours just do their thing and bleed into each other, and go fairly gently and try not to overwork it. I also dropped on some water onto the paint as well. You can see that I already did that in the first galaxy, and let that just bleed in and create some nice interesting effects. So the second set is the Winsor and Newton Cotman range, which is their student range of colours. And to be honest, I quite like this range. I wouldn't use it for a finished painting that I wanted to sell, because I feel like the professional paints are much better. But for practicing things out, it's really a great little set if you want to have some fairly good paints in a reasonable price. Thirdly, I moved on to my Schmincke, which I love. The colours are very vibrant. Unfortunately, my video cut out at that point and I lost the process for the most of the Schmincke, but you will see it with the second layer. And finally, I did my 4th circle, which was using my Winsor and Newton professional tube paints. Now in this palette I do have some tube paints which are by Daniel Smith, but I think here I mainly stuck to the Winsor and Newton, and again in the same colour scheme as I did the other 3 galaxies. You can see that I kind of drag my brush around and try and get some interesting effects by the way that the paint blends and puddles and pools as it's just doing its thing. And also you can take a cleaned off brush and lift up areas of paint to create lighter areas. Now on to round 2. Make sure that your paint has dried completely before you do the second layer, and this really creates a lot of depth in your galaxies. And I used the same colours again and went over and did a second layer on each of them. The Kuretake are really lovely, vibrant colours as well. To be honest, at this point, I really wasn't seeing much difference in the quality of all 4 paint brands. They all created lovely galaxies. You can see that as you add a second layer, it really creates a lot of interest in your galaxy, especially if you do one color on top of a different color so that it creates a glaze and that color from previously shows through. So again, onto the Winsor Newton and using the same colors that I used before, so different shades of reds and crimsons along with a little bit of blue and purple and finally black. I wouldn't recommend doing a galaxy where you have, say, for example, some yellow and then some purple, because if you mix them, they can create muddy tones. Galaxies are such a lovely, relaxing thing to paint, and you really can't go wrong with them. And they're fairly quick to do, and you can then add to them by painting things on top or painting a landscape underneath or so on and so forth. They're lots and lots of fun. At this point, I was realizing that even though I really didn't notice a huge difference between the brands, the Schmincke and the Winsor Newton Professional, the colours were slightly more vibrant than they were in the Kuretake and the Cotman range. Especially, I have to say, my favourite colour of all, which is the Winsor Newton Opera Rose Pink, which is such a gorgeous, almost fluorescent pink colour, and that really showed up in this galaxy in such a lovely way. So at the moment I'm aiming to do a little series of watercolour mini videos on YouTube. I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel. You can hit the notification bell, which gives you a notification of when I upload each video, which will be on a Wednesday. I will also leave a link in the description to my social media if you wish to follow me and the materials that I used for this class. Once I had done all 4 and I let them dry completely, I took some white acrylic paint, slightly watered down on a toothbrush, and using my thumb spattered it across to create the stars. You can take this even further if you want by taking a small paintbrush and painting slightly bigger stars. I decided to do some moons in mine, and I used my white gouache for that because I really love the slightly transparent quality that the white gouache creates, especially if you mix it with a little bit of water, so that the moon almost has little shadows on it. So here you can see the final results, and I would have to say that they all did really well for galaxies. So I think it doesn't really matter what brand of paint that you use for your galaxies. And I think that while the professional paints had slightly more vibrant colours, all 4 paints did really well in this experiment. Thank you so much for watching, and I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you again next week for another Watercolour Wednesday. Bye!